Haha, it's not gonna replay because I turned it off.
Man, damn it.
I caught it.
The more I hear that song, the more I love it.
I get chills every time I scream along.
I'm the opposite.
You and
Yeah,
Arwen
was a
doesn't like
set-
the song there.
Yeah, I didn't care for it at first, but the more I hear it, it's just the words and her voice. She's amazing. Oh, was she 14 when she did that?
Yeah, 14.
Crazy.
Damn it. I'm trying to find a good recipe for somebody in chat for golden milk, and all the ones I'm finding have become really complicated. The one I remember was very simple. Does anyone have a handy one they know offhand? Ratios is what I'm looking for.
Just give the ingredients. Well,
Yeah, I'm going to drop it on.
cumin, honey. What is it?
I know, but they've added all kind of like ginger and add coconut oil and beans and all this crazy stuff. I don't see a simple one anywhere. They're all complicated now. I'll give them one. Hang on.
Did we remain in contact with Tony and Nathan and
Yeah, it's still here.
good stuff? Just checking. Yeah, you know,
Welcome
this is
back,
the Iron
everybody.
Realm,
By the
mate.
way, this is right. One click away from perfection.
It's
Adam,
not uncommon to lose guests in the break.
it's nothing is uncommon on Iron Realm, basically.
I accidentally dropped out the call, if that's what you're referring to.
No, I'm just checking in.
Right. Well, we
just
had lost. I saw we lost Zach for a minute, but it looks like it
Adam's
was
there,
Hank.
I think. Yeah,
Hank,
Yeah, hang on.
yeah, well,
Good. We're all back.
we're all here. I think. We made
lovely,
it back.
lovely.
Fill me in. What before the break? You said you made a pre-record. I have no idea what you're talking about. Obviously, you guys all.
Not a pre-record. It's I've got a terrible habit of not remembering what I said 20 minutes ago, but I can remember what I said 20 years ago. I think Tony had that problem as well. He was describing. So I record our hangouts and stuff before. We've got a pre-show hangout on Wednesdays. And most of the time I record it so I can listen back to it the next day and remember what the hell we were talking about. So
Right.
during these pre-show hangouts, generally they are dynamite and they're better than our shows, which is quite annoying because no one gets to hear them. But yeah, I went off on some rant or whatever, and you know, it's late at night and all that sort of stuff. Nathan, you know, yeah, so it's just easier to play it than it is to try and recreate that rant. Does that make
I
sense?
see. Yeah, it makes sense.
So I might as well play it then, as we're knocking on that.
No, let's
Rant away.
This would be a spot for that. Yeah.
say again, Josh.
I said let's describe it some more.
Okay, you go for it. You were there.
You're right. It's better just to play it.
You're almost English in your sarcasm. That's quality. That is.
That was good.
Okay, everyone listening, everyone can hear. Let me know.
We've got
Right, John. It is long overdue, and unless people are habitual watchers of Nathan Oakley, most people don't get it.
No.
And that's what I see in a lot of the new flat earthers and a lot of the ballers out there, is the fact that they just don't get this very simple concept.
No.
And that's why I boil it down to it being just a philosophical point of view, whether it's round or flat, because when it comes down to it, that's basically what it's going to have to be. It's all how you're going to see, how you view the world. It's your whole philosophy. You want to have a ball earth philosophy. It works. You can make it work. Fine, whatever. But it doesn't make it reality. And there's just no way to scientifically prove that it's a ball. And that's what, once you can learn to articulate that, basically in any setting, at any argument, that there's really nothing a baller is going to be able to come at you with that's going to have any merit. And that's where Nathan Oakley sits in his laurels and just swats them away, because they all come out there trying to be scientific, thinking they're going to scientifically prove that it's a ball. And that's why he does what he does with such ease, because it's an argument that he's designed to be able to win at every juncture. It's why his housekeeping is designed the way it's designed, so that the only real answers are going to be the ones that they give.
It's unwinnable.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this
there's a
is
little
what I was
bit
going to
more,
say,
Tom.
Adam. Hold on. This is what I was going to say, and maybe make a note. It's akin to Einstein and his carriage going down the road, and okay, to everyone who is normal, sane, and have 2 neurons to rub together rather than 2 billion neurons, him saying that his example was, you know, a guy falls over on the street. It's equally as logical to say that the street jumped up and smacked him in the face rather than him falling over. Like in a cart, you're driving down the road in a cart, it's equally as logical to say that the street and the road and everything around you is moving in the other direction and you're standing still. This is how ludicrous and ridiculous I find the you know, what we can describe zetetically, what we're calling zetetically, and what seems to be rejected as scientific, because we don't have a street to move, or a pavement to slap you in the face, or an earth to spin to show that it's not spinning. Do you see what I mean? I'm almost at the point where I don't give a fuck about scientific anything. I'll stick with zetetic, because that's what your common sense, logic, and absolute rational reason tells you is what's going on. If you can show that you can get a gyroscope and nothing is happening to it, then you can logically conclude that what that gyroscope is attached to is not moving and no forces are being applied to it. If you can then go on to say, well, that's bollocks because you haven't got an earth that's turning in order to show that it would work or wouldn't work, then, and until you do that, I can't call it scientific. That's fine, don't call it scientific. I'm not interested in your scientific anything anymore. I'm more interested in zetetic common sense.
Right, save that fucking rant for Friday, right? And I'll tell you why, because I think you'll make Nathan cry.
That was epic. That was absolutely beautifully put. There's nothing wrong with the observably bloody obvious, and gyroscopes fall into that category. You don't need to call it science. There's absolutely no necessity whatsoever, and that's to our advantage, because we've got the truth on our side. We don't have some obscure phenomenon to try and validate. You know, when we're seeing buildings in the distance, it's very static. You see it because it's there. However, they turn it into an observed phenomena. Now, they can't easily reverse that onto us, which is how it seems to come across when I'm batting it away with the globe heads, because they're using lies and trying to validate them by calling them science. And we've got no need to. It's bloody obvious. Like you say, your gyroscope hasn't moved an inch. The cradle hasn't spun around this fixed spinning thing. Nothing has changed. It's obvious what's going on. That doesn't need a scientific validation. There's no cause and effect reasoning required to state the bloody obvious. And that I like that, Rank, because I can almost hear it in your voice that you're kind of annoyed about the fact that you can't call it science. And it's like, well, stop just science then. Well, yeah, absolutely right on. We don't need science. It's bloody obvious that the Earth's flat. Don't need to science the shit out of anything. They do, because they've got nothing but lies. And in the process of realizing that establishing cause and effect proves something, they've hijacked it, like they hijacked perspective with the calculator. They've hijacked the meaning of the word and diluted it right down. So earlier on in your education, you vaguely remember that science proves things. Then almost immediately into your adult life, when you start getting into definitions, oh, well, no, science doesn't prove things. Well, yeah, it does. You go through your systematic experimentation stage to validate your cause. Well, there's no cause involved with your gyroscope. It's not an experiment, but you don't need to dress it up as one. They do when they talk about Cavendish, because it's not proving a damn thing. But if you call it science, suddenly layman thinks, well, that's obviously science. Look at it. It's a contraption, and they say it's science. And I vaguely remember something about that proving things. Well, we don't need that. It's obviously and observably flat, and every instrumentation that you ever get that's referencing the very nature of our flat plane we dwell atop, it will tell you exactly that. Don't need science for that. Just say, look, obviously, if you can extrapolate, if it was a ball, it would be moving. It's not. You don't need to suddenly have the ability to manipulate that variable. The shape of the Earth falls outside of the remit of science. You can't vary and manipulate the shape of the Earth. You can't turn a flat plane into a curved Earth just to validate your cause and effect reasoning with a gyroscope. But you don't need to. Bloody obvious, it's flat.
Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate that.
I like that rant. That was epic, because you're absolutely spot on. Even through, I can hear the frustration in your voice, because presumably you've been calling these things experiments. And here's me saying, it's not an experiment. How dare you use that term? Spit, spit. And you're like, well, no, this is proving something. Well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with logical deduction, and you put it even better than I could.
Well, yeah, it was several cases of people throwing it back at me, saying, what's your variable? I don't even know the jargon, to be perfectly honest. Help me out.
Yeah, what's your independent variable?
Independent variable, and your
cause.
That's right.
You're trying to establish the cause of what? Nothing's happening, right?
Well, it then sort of snowballed on to finally sort of saying, well, you're going to need a stationary flat Earth, and you're going to need a spinning spherical Earth in order to prove what you're talking about.
It kind of where the conversation started tonight. It's not necessarily directly semantics, but we kind of got it to the point where we understood it. It can be classed as an experiment in some ways if set up and viewed hypothetically, but in the sense of it in relation to the Earth spinning, it could not be called a scientific experiment, because
that's where we got to, wasn't it?
We had to vary the spin of the Earth, and that's what would be requirement of the experiment to demonstrate. In the experiment, you have to vary the spin of the Earth to prove it scientifically.
Well, I think we settled on zetetic experiment or something by the end of it, which was inquiring by experimentation sort of thing.
Yeah, the bit I want to get to is that doesn't mean that the experiment, like experiment 2, where you set up a scientific experiment where you measured whether an applied force at a slow rate would affect change on the gyroscope.
Stop you.
Oh, cool. I knew it. Go on.
Okay.
I know what it is. Yeah.
What's an experiment? Yeah, this is semantics, but it's important because this is seminal, if you ask me, because in John's actions, he's essentially accepting the fact that if you can describe it in a zetetic fashion as opposed to a scientific fashion, then you've only got people to observe the obvious, right? When you frame it in the context of science, some clever dick will come along and say, well, how are you going to vary your independent variable? If you're going to say the cause of this is it's flat, cause is established with science, and your cause, independent variable, the thing you'll vary, is the flatness of the Earth, something that is impossible to vary. Well, that's how we get the globe heads when they say, this is science. I'm going to go out and measure the horizon with the theodolite. Oh, yeah, science, you say? Wonderful. How are you going to vary and manipulate the independent variable? So we get them by the balls on this day in, day out, but we don't need to fall victim to the same trap when some clever dick globehead says, What's your independent variable for your gyroscope experiment?
Exactly.
If you just did the word experiment, and this is the reason, the semantics, is that an experiment is a hypothesis test. And a hypothesis is a scientific prediction. So as soon as you say experiment, it automatically frames it in science. And it means you're going to be testing your scientific prediction. So it is ipso facto a scientific term. As soon as you say experiment, you mean you're going to be testing your hypothesis. And your hypothesis is something that's going to establish your cause and effect. So you're screwed as soon as you say that word. Even if you say test, if you're talking in a context of science and you say test, that automatically means experiment.
Oh, man.
Right, Nath,
Don't take
Nath.
away my test.
Don't get to test in a minute, because I want to just test Nathan, if that's all right, or test me.
Well, I've got one more sentence. One more
go on.
sentence.
Go on.
I'll let you go ahead. So the word test is ambiguous in the respect that it has many meanings, but it's all about the context. If you're trying to sound scientific, in other words, the way you're describing something is to come across as though it is science, and you say test, that frames it immediately as a hypothesis test because you're talking scientifically. Now, you can obviously have maths tests. You know, you can have a test of one's intelligence. You can have all sorts of different tests. It's all about the framework that you're talking within.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to say that I'm scientifically validating what shape the land we dwell atop is, then you say I'm going to do a test, you're screwed immediately.
I know you're talking absolute accuracy, but I'm running out of words, mate.
Yeah, it's a bugger, isn't it? It's always 9 times out of 10 an observation. So that's the simplest thing, and that's why I like the terminology. It is obviously and observably flat. In other words, you know, you can make your extrapolations of what it's not doing, but you're not having to scientifically validate that as the contrary in a hypothesis test. So you can say, well, my gyroscope doesn't do anything. It's not moving an inch. The plane's gyroscopes, when they get to their destination, they may cage them, but they don't need to. They've not moved. You know, they're on exactly the same reference as when they took off. Well, them not doing anything is because they're not doing anything, you know, because it's not a bloody sphere. If it was, then they'd do something. Now, that logical deduction is perfectly acceptable.
Sweet.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm almost
no,
show.
No, dude. Moving on. I mean, the point you made there is it's okay to observe something, and the only point I'd say with regards to that is that, you know, that is the observation of a phenomenon. Sorry, Zach. Is the foundations of science, is the beginnings. Now, whether or not we can then go on to prove a hypothesis for that observation scientifically is a very difficult thing to do.
Oh, stop you again. I'm really sorry, Adam. You're going to hate me at the end of this.
No, it's good. It's good, man. I've got no problem with being wrong, bro.
Well,
I'm not saying I am. Yeah.
So, Anthony, I'm going to use you instead of Adam. Sorry, I'm going to pick on you because Adam's had one bullet.
Dude, yeah, I'm a big. I'm
Hang on a minute. I haven't said anything. I've been deliberately keeping quiet here.
You're in the line of fire. It's already happened. Deal with it.
Pick on it.
So what Anthony does is he looks at his observation. So he takes a picture of a lighthouse that's 31 miles away, and he says, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't know why I can see the lighthouse, and I want to throttle him. What do you mean you don't know why you can see it? You can see it. I don't have to ever explain. I've got my, you know, I'm not going to turn my camera on, but I'm holding my keyboard, right? And I close my eyes for a second. I open my eyes, and there's my keyboard. Now, do I need to say, like Anthony does?
Okay, so you just saw it.
Why I see my keyboard? Let's science this immediately. No, I just see it because it's in front of me and it's there. I've opened my eyes and I see it. It's there. It's a concrete noun. There it is. I see it. Yeah. The same exact thing applies to the lighthouse. You open your eyes, you see it. It's there. No explanation whatsoever required. So when Anthony says, I don't know why I see it, Well, that's because you're trained to think that it's an observed phenomena. Just seeing something suddenly becomes something that's a phenomenon. Well, it's not. Just seeing something is not a phenomena. There it is. You see it. It's there. End of explanation. None required. No science needed. There it is. So the same is true for a lot of observations, including the gyroscope. It's obviously not moving. It's observably not doing anything. It's just giving you the same reference every single time. Well, that doesn't need any science. Observably bloody obvious.
Well, the reason why I actually don't say, the reason why I say I don't know why I can see it, is then I can't be accused of making an assertion that I can't, validate or prove. So if you say nothing, then it means that you're not going to get into trouble.
Photograph. How much more validation do you need? There it is.
I think the point I'd make there is it requires, when you look at that gyroscope, if you don't have the science for the understanding and the scientific understanding of what you're looking at as a gyroscope, which has to be validated and proven scientifically, then that obvious thing isn't anything necessarily obvious. So the point I was kind of making is that these things, both scientific validation of one thing, which can make another thing bloody obvious, work hand in hand. The skill is to, or the key is to ensure that when you make the statement, you're validating it in the correct manner, not saying it's scientific when it's just bloody obvious.
I see an observation.
Come on, Nathan, I can't. Go on, sorry.
Well, there's no science needed. There's just, you've said, but you've got to understand the science of the gyroscope. Well, when you say it, you've got to understand the cause and effect of the gyroscope.
Yeah, for you to view a gyroscope, and look at it and say it's not moving, you have to understand the implications of why it's not moving, why it's sat there in free space, and that comes from some scientific validation to get to that understanding that when you then look at it and see it's not moving, it makes sense. Does that?
I would just
have a level of knowledge.
Just leave out the word science, Adam.
Yeah, there's no science in it. There's just knowledge and understanding and studying and.
I showed my children when they were 8, I think they were, the gyroscope, and I showed, I was pushing on this side, pushing on that side, and putting it on a little wire and all the rest of it. And they don't know anything about science, but they understood it completely. I'm like, if I push on this side, where's it going to go? And they'd tell me, and it's a principle of understanding the principle of how a gyroscope works.
Yeah, cool.
Principle is probably the wrong word as well. I don't know.
You can then specifically in relation to gyroscopes
is the word that we're mistaking science for an understanding of things, and just literally utilizing a piece of man-made equipment like a gyroscope or manufacturing it would take skill and understanding, but it wouldn't take any science.
No, okay, so that's not the point I'm making. So the science bit comes in is when you then apply science to it with regards to its motion of applied force. So when you start to set up experimentation, which gives you understanding of how, when an applied force on the gyroscope, how it acts. Okay, from the science that you validate from that gives you an understanding of a greater understanding, other than the obvious of when you hit the gyroscope, it doesn't move. Yeah, it gives you a greater understanding of how those forces are applied. That then enables and more validates your obvious statement and enables you to quantify it more. Yeah, when you do say, look, there are no forces being applied to it. So that's where I see science is in things like this. There is science in it, but it's not at the end conclusion.
But there isn't. Where's the science? You tell me which point is the science.
Nathan, can I ask you a question from chat?
Again?
How do you respond when they use the word science in the context of the science of music, cooking, astrology? You know, when they use that word broadly speaking.
All nonsense. Science establishes cause and effect. That's what it does. It's very, very, very limited. Very, very, very narrow.
They don't like it.
Don't care. It's tough.
But
you know.
I agree with the narrow and the limited side of things, because I have these debates on Twitter with people all the time, and they're like, oh, well, what do you believe that the sun is? What do you believe the moon is? Or what do you believe is happening when the sun goes down? Any number of these things. And I have to repeatedly point out that the whole point of what I'm doing is trying not to believe. I want to know, and what I want to know, and what I know is something that I can test every day, and I can in my eyes I can know it. I don't know if it's scientifically knowing it or anything along those lines, but like I know that well, we're not spinning, and I can't find a curve, and you know, moonlight is cold, and things like this. Yeah, I've lost my train of thought on diesel fumes. I think
the negative. Again, if we stick to the gyroscope, you said, well, it's not moving. Well, if it was scientific, then you would never directly be testing the zero difference result. You're always testing to try and establish a cause of something. So let's ignore for a second that it's a man-made device, because science is solely looking at the natural world, naturally occurring phenomena. So automatically, if you try and establish the cause of anything about the gyro, well, man made that gyro. So the cause of it is man made it. So again, it's going to fall outside of science. But that doesn't mean that these things aren't intrinsically useful to people not dying on aeroplanes. And if they didn't obey certain principles, people would die. That's a fact. So they're not suddenly demeaned by the fact that they haven't been validated by a cause and effect relationship. So what? You know, it doesn't change the fact that if they didn't do what they do, people would die. So these things are critically important in everyday life.
Yeah.
And you know, to establish a foundation of logic based on the fact that it is just doing what it does is perfectly acceptable. But the way our reasoning works, because we're so used to fighting against somebody says it is supposed to be doing something that it isn't, you've kind of got this juxtaposition between the negative of something not happening, you know, us not spinning, us not experiencing any inertial forces, us not seeing the gyroscope turn in its cradle. You know, it's hard to kind of say, well, what do I see? Well, actually, I don't see anything happening. You know, I don't feel the earth turning. I don't see any curvature. It's kind of the antithesis of having to prove it. That's why I say it's obvious and observable, you know, not requiring science. But that's a bonus. That's a massive plus. You know, the truth is genuinely on our side. This is why I'm so passionate about flat Earth. You know, it's nice to be in a privileged position that you don't need to suddenly have to dress up your pseudoscience religious belief with nonsense, you know, parlor tricks.
Yeah,
we don't do that.
I think that's where I fell off the rails earlier, was explaining to people on Twitter that, you know, it's okay to not know. That's a good thing. It's you know, it's dropping all these. Well, what is it they say? You know, wisdom is knowing what you don't know, and that's what I enjoy. Is that although you say science is like a really narrow band, yeah, it is a narrow band, and it has a lot of qualifications to get into that narrow band. But if you're going to talk about science, then at least make sure it is science. And if you're not, if you're going to step outside that band, then acknowledge that as well and name it something else, like zetetic observation or something along those lines. But yeah, absolutely.
Nathan, is there a difference between science and the scientific method? Because Rune Thorsten says in chat, science does not mean cause and effect. It means to know or close to it. Is there a difference between the two phrases?
1,000,001 definitions, but ultimately speaking, there is a methodology, and that is the scientific method. That is science. Now, because it's been diluted, you'll get 101 people coming with different definitions that say, no, my science allows this. Well, okay, let's take that to its logical conclusion. What's science trying to do? Well, it's trying to establish the reason behind a phenomena in the natural world. That's the purpose of science. And when we say what's causing a phenomena, we mean it in those literal terms, cause and effect. And how do you establish cause and effect? Well, surprisingly, there's a methodology for that. It's called the scientific method. So, no, unfortunately, there are a lot of, as John calls them, pretender clowns. And this is deeply upsetting to a lot of people because their science that they went to university or college, depending on your neck of the woods, to learn has had that word above the door each and every time they walked in when they're learning about mechanical engineering. And they're told it's a science. Well, unfortunately not. That's unfortunate. The same is applicable. You can't cherry pick. It's true. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. When we say, sorry, Neil deGrasse Tyson, you're a pseudoscientist. You can't establish cause and effect reasoning, bloody observations, and you're not going to tell me that it's obvious the Earth's turning and that's why we see the sun moving. No, no, sir, that's not obvious. We're not talking about the obvious and observable nature of our flat plane when we talk about the twinkly lights in the sky. That ain't science. By definition, because he says, well, science is right whether you like it or not. In other words, he frames himself in the context of science. He automatically becomes a pseudoscientist. Because when you take any of his assertions to their logical conclusion, you would apply a method. The scientific method, shock horror. And you wouldn't be able to establish a cause for any of the phenomena he observes. So he's only got a partial step in science, and that's step one, observe a phenomena. Well, he can do that all day long. Can Neil deGrasse Tyson? Oh, yes, they can observe a lot of phenomena. Well, you try and establish the cause of that phenomena, and then you've got a bit of a problem. Can't adhere to the method. These are pseudoscientists, but they only become pseudosciences when you try and dress it up as science, when you try and make it seem like that kid that was told when he was very young and impressionable that science proves things when you're in school. So you've got that distant memory to cling on to when someone says, this is science, you know. Oh, really? Well, that must mean it proves what you're saying then. I must trust what you say is absolutely factually accurate. Well, hang on a second. Someone over here has actually applied this method and they've established it to be true. And it's done through a particular way, systematic experimentation. Do it over and over and over and over and over again and prove it time and time again that your presumed cause is the cause of the effect. But that's so limited. Most things don't fall under cause and effect reasoning, especially the Earth.
So what you're saying is they've hijacked the meaning, they've given a very broad meaning for the word science, and they shouldn't have done it. Still should be narrow.
Yeah, because it's very powerful. You know, if you really dig into the roots of science, you'll find that scientific discovery has driven some amazing things in our world. Well, that's because it's a very useful methodology. If you need to figure out the cause of an effect,
well,
then it's very great.
Nathan, what would you... I mean, there's so many ologies now. What would you say are the ologies that are scientific? I mean, sort of chemistry, biology...
The ones that comply with the scientific method.
Yeah.
Precisely. John went through this on one of the presentations, and he listed them, literally, and it's difficult to say any particular one because it depends what they're doing.
When you say John, who you...
John, quantum eraser.
Right, okay, and this is what I was ultimately, the question was about, was those, I mean, astrophysics and quantum anything, None of them are science, are they?
Well, certainly. Well, it depends when you say quantum. What do you mean? Because the quantum eraser experiment is a scientific experiment, so it has adhered to the scientific method. It's studying light and its effects.
Okay, I'll quickly reverse back on that one and just say, what would you regard is scientific these days?
Anything that's established cause and effect. Simple as that. So John gives an example with scurvy. It's been established through scientific discovery in terms of the cause of scurvy, the vitamin C deficiency. So it's something that you can do through a process that will give you an actual valid scientific result in any field. It's just about applying that method to any phenomena.
So there's no real reason to segregate the fields in terms of different scientific regions like biology and chemistry and this, that and the other. I mean, science is just a methodology, isn't it?
Precisely. Exactly.
Yeah.
And anyone can do it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So scientists, what's a scientist? Well, are you applying the scientific method? Automatically, you are a scientist.
Exactly. Yeah, brilliant.
So there's a message in chat that says, I think we should start looking into the Aristotelian different types of causes. No, because Aristotle was a philosopher, and philosophers are not scientific. They tell stories. Philosophy, that would be the antithesis of science, and that would be the worst thing possible that you could ever do. So let's not look at Aristotle for a way forward here. Let's learn the scientific method, because that's really helpful for us to prove things. We can prove a cause and effect. That's really where we need to be going, because that's not where science is currently at.
Well, I mean, I'm just wondering, because I'm no longer referring to my gyroscopic thing as an experiment or scientific, but I will cling to the sort of zetetic principles of common sense and logic or that sort of thing until proved otherwise. So I don't know. I'm shunning away from the scientific stuff because it is so acute. I don't know. Is that, what do people think about that?
Very wise. Very wise. Because there's nothing wrong with something being just clear, simple, obvious, and observable. There's nothing wrong with that.
It saves on all this bullshit as well, arguing of semantics and that sort of thing. But I also think it's incredibly important to be able to define what scientific is and what scientific isn't. And it seems to me that almost most things don't fall into the scientific realm, and the things that do are ignored.
I'd echo Nathan's thought that it's. I find it strange how there is this hierarchical difference between scientific and clearly bleeding obvious, and it seems strange over the past 50 years that the two have swapped positions, where now or in the past the clear and obvious would be the key driver of any decision. We all seem to be hoodwinked by and can have our clear and obvious observations overridden by a scientific statement. And to me, the two are now in the wrong position with regards to their importance. Yeah.
Absolutely. Can I give you an example? Yeah. So Zach will probably pipe up after this, hopefully. We'll see. So I've been meaning for ages to just literally lower and raise the camera in a nice flat hall that my kid goes to a playgroup in. And I did it, got the shot I wanted, very delighted. Publish it, happy days. Lots and lots of trolley comments. One in particular from a guy called Heath Carmody. And Heath Carmody says, I've modeled this. That's not how it works. And you're like, okay. So this is a guy that will try and punt his technology, his model making ability, as some sort of scientific validation to what I've observed. It's like, no, mate, take your model, cram it up your ass, because I've seen it with my own two eyes. I don't need to validate anything here. Seen it. I've even shown you. Take it or leave it. Don't care. Couldn't give a crap. Doesn't trump what I've seen with my own eyes, and any bugger can replicate very easily. So take your model and go away. I've had enough of models. But before now, 6 months ago, maybe a bit longer, 8 months ago, someone comes along and says, I've put this into a computer program and modeled it. Let's have a look at the science of these angles. You go, oh no, have I got the angles wrong with my camera? No, you're just taking a picture of something. There's nothing wrong with just looking at something and seeing how it does something. That's fine. Just look at how your world works and go, yeah, that's how it works. Can I do it again? Who cares? You don't need to repeat it. You know, it doesn't make any difference. Once is enough. If you see something happen and you can explain it and you understand it, then you don't need to repeat it. You've got an explanation for it. If you see something and you haven't got an explanation for it, for example, you see wind turbines looking like they're going over the curve of the Earth according to these zealots who assert it based on a presuppositional R value in a calculator. You go, okay, right, well, let's just junk all that garbage religion and say, what's going on here? Why are we seeing these going over the curve of the Earth according to these globe heads? What's the actual effect? Well, the effect isn't validated by science. It's validated by sheer observation. You just figure out what you're looking at. What am I actually looking at here? I'm looking at something further away. Well, what happens when something gets further away? Well, it gets smaller. What happens when you look away at something further in the distance? Well, you look at it in a more limited angle, therefore forcing it to be a smaller angular size. The two are intrinsically linked. The limited angle that you view at, the angular size of the bottom of something. And it reaches a point where it starts to disappear. You can demonstrate it by lifting and lowering your camera. Now, that's all visual. I don't think I said the word science once. Don't need to. But I'm going to piss so many people off on this show. I hope Nick doesn't watch this. Nick from Phuket Word, bless him. I love Nick. He's wonderful. He's one of my favourite YouTubers. I really wish I could make videos like Nick. I can't. I've tried. This was probably the closest I ever came. Anyway, that aside, he said, this is real science in the comment. I was like, oh no, Nick, I know you mean well. I know you're congratulating me. I really appreciate your comment because you're the master of these videos. You know, thank you. I didn't criticise him on the comment. I wish I had now because I probably wouldn't have mentioned it twice on air. But there we go. That's the problem. As soon as I would try to say it's the science, look at my experiment. Well, what's your experiment? Well, I raise and lower my camera phone, you know, against the flat surface. That's my experiment. What's your hypothesis? If camera lowering, then flat floor. So you're saying that the camera lowering causes the floor to be flat? Well, no, that's nonsense. But it doesn't need a hypothesis for me to call it science. No, you're just a pseudoscience idiot. Whereas I just say, look at this observation. As I lower the camera, the bottom of stuff gets now more and more slim, just like Ranty's boats, because of the angle. There's a simple logical deduction, and we can see it time and time again. It's repeated at every distance we see. That's why we argue about it. We just didn't know that the nonsense that came along with the assertion at the beginning of this great big rant was that the ball is going over the bloody curve because of the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculator. Wasn't that illusion? We just say, what's going on here? Let's have a little look at it. Let's observe it a bit closer. Not let's science the shit out of this phenomena.
Yeah, I must shout out to Phuket World though. He does some fantastic videos.
Yeah, I've been saying what we're seeing is a fundamental limitation of a lens with a circular aperture. I don't use the word science at all. After you, I don't use the word experiment anymore either. I'll say test or observation. You've taught me well, Nathan. But yeah, it is though. It's a fundamental limitation. You cannot not have this diffraction taking place. It's always going to be there. And the further away you go, the larger it will get. Always.
Yeah, precisely. The diffraction limit, also known as the angular size that we describe something as when you're looking at it based on what you're looking at it through. So your diffraction limit is based on the aperture of whatever it is you're using. In other words, this term also, I want to nip this in the bud, I'm sure you'll appreciate this, Zach. When people describe it, they're describing it like it's out there. Because you're looking at something and it's a picture of something, it's described like it's happening on the horizon or at the thing you're observing. It's not. It's happening this end. It's a limitation with your eye, for example. So
Exactly.
It's not the size of the iris. That's your diffraction limit. That's how far you can see, how small something can become before it disappears. So it's all down to the size of your lens, the eye. Or you go to a nice big zoom camera, and obviously your diffraction limit changes because you can zoom in on stuff. Yeah? So, yeah.
Nathan, what did you think about... I had an idea last week about incorporating Adam's curvature calculator with Zach's diffraction, like minimum diffraction limits with an altitude factor as well. I don't know if you heard anything about that.
I don't. I'm sorry, I've not been keeping up with you.
That's all right. No, it's mutual.
Absolutely, those are the three things. That's it. So, yeah, you've got to take into account perspective. You've got to take into account the angular resolution of the lens that you're looking through, and you've got to take into account the angle of view. That's it. That's what they've hijacked. That's what gives you your curve calculator.
And that's what I was thinking, because Adam's done this curve calculator to perfection. We've got Zach's Rayleigh criterion and the angular resolution. All we need is altitude, and that is a really powerful tool that someone like Ranty could use.
Yeah. Well, I think just probably to put it into, we've been chatting and stuff looking at the formulas we've put together and seeing if we can make some bloody use of them, if you know what I mean. And obviously we've got Zach's thing, which I think is the most powerful. And I think where we're kind of looking at it is that's applicable over a flat plane, because that's what it applies to, a straight viewing angle, put more succinctly. I think what me and John's been chewing over is to then use the exact curvature calculation to extrapolate the secondary viewing line and distance that would actually be applicable if it was on a ball, because the straight line viewing distance is very different on a ball as opposed to on a plane. They're the same thing. It is very different on a ball to the actual viewing distance. The viewing distance is different to the topographical distance as you go around the circumference. So the mathematics would change with regards to Zach's calculation. Now, what that should then be able to show you is from any angle, from any picture, the calculation from Zach's formula should show you the amount of obscuration that would be different. Now, if you can get that in comparative conditions, that should then be able to, and distances, that gives you for me a tool that could demonstrate again the lack of curvature.
Hold on, to get this straight, are you proposing a begging the question perspective inclusive curve calculator?
Yes. I knew you was going to say that.
What you're describing is a complete ball earth car crash, basically.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a reverse comparative tool. So you go, there it is, look, the bottom 3 foot is obscured or whatever because of X, Y, Z. actually, if it wasn't a ball, the bottom 15 foot would be obscured. So it's a comparative ball bashing tool. I wouldn't necessarily. I actually preferred yours. Say again, Nathan.
Would it be begging the question? It's going to assume the radius factor. So you've got the premise that you're on a ball straight away. So it's a begging the question fallacy, regardless of what we're doing here. But you beg the question and assume you're on a sphere with a given circumference. Then you say, let's actually factor in the real distances involved. What would happen based on your altitude because of the viewing angle and the limitations that causes? We've just discussed them. And the radius factor, so the diffraction limit of the lens that you're using. So obviously, you get a nice big zoom lens, and like we see, it works out better. You can see more. But you put that on a ball and then work it out based on your angle of attack, as I call it. I like that term. It gets a bit of criticism, but I think it's straight to the point. When you say angle of attack, people know exactly what you mean. The way you attack the target, right? The angle you point the camera at, the way you are angled to whatever it is in the distance. Anyway, I'm going to keep using that term, sod anybody who doesn't like it. But yeah,
Miles
when
Davis.
a complete car crash, stuff should be vanishing almost immediately. You should only be, stuff would. It's a total car crash.
So you do
I would avoid the spherical anything, and just concentrate on trying to create some sort of whatever it is mathematical model of a flat plane and what you should see. And this will show people that things disappear from the ground up. Your feet disappear before your head, even on a flat plane. And this is why.
Just give me the code to Mick West's calculator. I'll change a few of the labels, and it actually works out quite well.
That's not a bad idea.
Well, it's true though, because whoever's done the calculations for it has actually done an exceptionally good job. There's a reason we have so many arguments about it when someone says, "Oh, look, I can see this thing in the distance that I shouldn't be able to see," and they go, "Oh no, look, the bottom 25 feet's missing." No, the bottom 25 feet at that distance is in the most limited angle possible and has started to vanish bottom up for the same reasons I demonstrate on the video that I put out a couple of days ago. Basically, the more limited that angle comes, the less you can see at that bottom limited angle. It becomes more and more and more squashed.
Well, it's not
seeing at these distances.
Unnatural to think that curvature calculator, although it made it onto the humble site of Mick the Meta Junk nut job, it could have come from quite intelligent people. So yeah, I think it just needs tweaking.
Yeah, it's almost always spot on. The exceptions come when the clarity is just too good to overcome by the calculations. But as a general rule of thumb, that calculator works out beautifully how much what they call the refracted hidden value would be based purely on the angle of elevation causing this obstruction from bottom up. They call curvature. That's the refracted hidden value. That's where they get it from. And when we were first looking at this, we were saying, well, they've just omitted perspective, and thinking, well, if we slip perspective in, that would work out in our favour. Now you're taking it one step further and saying, well, let's include all of these things they've ignored on the journey to realising that, as Jaron's now pointing out nice and concisely, it's not that they've ignored perspective, they've completely hijacked it. It just is a perspective calculator relabeled. That's why it works out so well all the time.
That's right. Perspective equals curvature in their calculations or their assumptions. Is that right?
Yeah, but they've also included, when they make it so critical that you put your height in correctly. That's why there's so many arguments about it, because it's critical, because it changes the angle that will be limited at distance. Obviously, if you're much higher up and you're looking straight down on something that's, not straight down, but 45-degree angle, say, from an aeroplane down on some high building, you've got a really wide angle, top and bottom, to that thing in the distance. So it's not going to disappear. But as soon as you put it against the flat surface of anything, an ocean, a table, the hall that I used, then you're limiting the angle to the bottom of it severely, to the point where you can get it down nothing.
Put simply, you go up higher, you open the angle up, which allows you to go see it from a further distance. It allows
Precisely.
it to shrink more.
Put simply, it's just bloody common sense, really.
Yeah, but what they say is you're rising up to see over the curve of the Earth. Here's our calculation for what you should see disappearing as you lower in altitude. Well, they've just figured out the angle of attack. And when people see some completely consistent mirage line all along the bottom, you know, I can see Zach in the background watching those videos going, that's the limit being reached. You know, that's where it lies. That's why it runs the full length of the image. And that's why Anthony and I discussed this the other day in debate. When we got to the lighthouse itself has got that line running directly through the middle of it. It runs the full length of the image of the Isle of Man. And that's right on the limit. That's right on the limit of what you can see at the angle that Anthony was when he took those images. You know, that would change based on how high or low he was. And that's why it got debated so heavily. But the rumpus would never mention it. And we'd be like, well, what's this mirror line then? How are you going to account for that? And at the time we were harping on about, well, how are you going to ray trace this? How are you going to put it in your models? Because we didn't realize they were just begging the question. But ultimately speaking, that was our focus. And we couldn't figure out why Rumpus wouldn't talk about it. It's because if you ultimately try to give any explanation for it, it'll lead you down the path of figuring out where the diffraction limit lies. That's what you're seeing. That's why it's consistent. That's why it runs the length of the image.
Love it. I really do. Yeah.
Have you? Sorry, John. Just to keep it on track. There's a little bit that come out this week that I wanted. I did a little bit of photoshopping work, and I was kind of hoping Ranty was here because I wanted teaching a bit. But have you seen Miles, the Liar Davis's retort with his hardboard down a hall?
But Ranty described it verbally.
Yeah, so there's been a little bit of that. I'll see if I can. I'll just share screens. A second. Wrong one, right there.
Adam, while you're filling.
Yeah.
I'm just coming to the end of my fuse here, so not my fuse, my candle wick.
Your glue.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'm high as a kite on diesel fumes off my face, and it's getting a bit late. We're knocking on for the second hour, so I'd like to say thanks so much to Anthony and Nathan, and I put a little request in to you, Josh, if you could just read that quote from Newton. Can you see it?
Josh there.
Oh, I'm here. No, see it where?
Sorry, but let me share screen.
Yes.
Okay, you can see it now.
Just give me 1 second, John. I'm cocking
I hear
around
Adam
sharing
clicking
screen.
away. He's working
I
on it.
can hear you clicking away. I'm buying you some time here, and I'm also politely saying, without being rude, that I'm buggering off. And
Love you, cuz.
I was just
Have a
wanting
good one, man.
Josh to read
You're
out.
going to be hanging around for another hour.
I
Get
will
out.
be,
know,
yeah,
exactly.
you know it, but I won't be talking.
Well, we'll see.
I'll be
We'll see
huffing
how
on
that
my
works
bag of glue, and I'll be sniffing the exhaust
Got your
pipes.
diesel, right? Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're knocking on for 1 o'clock here. I know. Oh well, actually, it's a really bad excuse when I'm joined by 2 UK guests. But yeah, there you go.
I dropped a video in the chat. If you fast forward to like 310, if you want to watch it, it explains angular resolution. And when you
Sweet.
lower the angle, it really it shows how it all works.
Josh, can you
If
please
you wanna
read
watch the
that
whole
out?
thing, it's 8 minutes long or something like that. But I went to a road where it just had a little like slant in it, and I showed that when I lower my camera down, the slant it shows a mirage, and then it shows the surface behind it, like it's I don't know. It explains exactly what Nathan was saying. The closer you get down to it, once it reaches a certain angle, that diffraction starts taking place and it starts compounding.
This is why I love Phuket word stuff, because a lot of it is done in small scale. It's not, over miles and miles of distance. The one he did with a lighter across a playground that was clearly flattened, it's just amazing.
So, John, I'm seeing a picture of a hallway with some boards on it. Is that what you want me to read, or have you dropped a link in the chat room somewhere?
I don't know who's showing that, but
It's me.
can you stop sharing?
Let me stop sharing then, and then.
Okay, let me start sharing.
Please share, Mr. Savage.
Can you see
I
it?
know there's something to read, sort of. I see two windows that look like might be the same thing. One's big and one's small, but the small one's on the top. If I can get access to the big one, that
there
would
we go.
swell.
Right, and that's from Isaac Newton's. I think it's from his archives, anyway.
And just that paragraph right there.
Yeah.
It is inconceivable that inanimate brute matter should, without the mediation of something else, which is not material, operate upon and affect other matter without mutual contact. That gravity should be innate, inherent, and essential to matter, so that one body may act upon another at a distance through a vacuum, without the mediation of anything else, by and through which their action and force may be conveyed from one to another, is to me so great an absurdity that I believe no man who has in philosophical matters a competent faculty of thinking can ever fall into it. Gravity must be caused by an agent, acting consistently according to certain laws. But whether this agent be material or immaterial, I have left to the consideration of my readers.
Brilliant. Cheers, Josh. I thought that's an amazing quote. He's basically holding his hands up going, nothing to do with me.
It's almost Shakespearean in that you need to take it almost sort of sentence fragment by sentence fragment on these huge ass run-on sentences and break it down and just sort of write it out in layman's terms, just what the fuck he's saying.
Well, don't you find that is that the way we were taught to write, we'd have been marked down if we wrote a sentence like that with all the commas and everything in it, and it's what, 2 sentences, maybe 3, and it's like an entire paragraph. You'd be slapped around the head if you did that in real life.
Mr. Hemingway, he liked to do that.
Yeah,
He's basically saying you've got to be a complete moron to believe this shit.
yes,
That's what he's
it's
basically
basically what he's saying. Yeah.
That's it.
He's like,
Can
don't put my name on this crap, please, don't. And then he carks it, and gravity is Mr. Newton's thing.
Can you stick it back on
Well,
the screen so I can reread it?
He's quite specific in his taking of the piss,
I think it is on
isn't he? He goes that gravity should be innate, inherent, and essential to matter, so that one body may act. Oh, you've got rid of it.
Oh, sorry, I was resharing it.
There you go.
You got it back?
So, yeah. So the point being, so that one body may act upon another at a distance, and I like that. Through a vacuum, it's almost like he's laughing here. Like through a vacuum, without the mediation of anything else, yeah. By and through their action and force, may be conveyed from one to another, is to me so great an absurdity that I believe no man who has in philosophical matters a competent faculty of thinking can ever fall into it. There's a guy actually that you see on YouTube at the moment going, "Are you a fucking retard?" That reminds me and backs that statement up.
So who's this quoting? Is this quoting Newton?
This is Newton.
This is
Newton.
apparently Newton's third letter to Bentley on the 25th of February 1693, quoted in the works of Richard Bentley, D.D., blah 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 blah. It's
So if we have
Yeah, that's
six-
pretty epic, man.
Based
That's awesome.
if
I
we
think that's
accept
gonna have
face
I
value,
think that's
what-
going to have to make its way into that little bit of work I'm doing in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. I was thinking it needs to go somewhere important. That would be awesome.
He's essentially saying if you have got sound reasoning, i.e., you're not completely stupid, no way you'd accept this. And I see it as complete nonsense. That's what he's saying.
basically, yeah. He's sort of saying, I saw an apple falling from a tree. Now, don't fucking tie me into all this space-time continuum stretching nonsense. It's nothing to do with me. I saw an apple falling from a tree. That's it.
I tell you what, Nathan, in your most expressive language, in your most expressive, condescending, patronising tone, do you want to read that out, like adding the emphasis to where you see it? Because you're probably the most colourful.
No shit,
With your
that would be
prose.
amazing.
I can't. It's too small on my screen. I'm
Oh,
not
is it?
gonna- Just to be able to read it. But
'Cause
no.
if you did
sorry.
it in the style of Basil Fawlty out of Fawlty Towers, you could probably do this and everybody would understand it.
It is
by-
inconceivable.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Or if you did it in the style of Gem Panda when he's losing his temper, it'd work brilliantly.
As much as this probably is a translation, as far as I'm concerned, however, whoever phrased it is extremely eloquent. You know, it's very well put. Person who is of sound reasoning and cognition, I think he phrases it, or something along those lines. You're like, well, right. You're saying if you're not a complete Dumbo, you would never think this is real. And as soon as you read that, was it Walt? Who read it? Was it you, Walt?
No, that was me, Josh.
No, that was Josh.
Oh, sorry, Josh. When you were reading it, I was thinking, I'm picturing all the people that punt this. You know, it's like Newton said, if you're of sound mind, you would never believe this shit. So, what, by Newton's standard, you guys are all buffoons.
Yeah, that's gonna have to go in there, I think, Nathan, don't you think?
I don't know. I'm getting loads of information at the moment about the history hoax. So this would be pretty ancient stuff as far as those people are concerned. So
Check
maybe
its,
speak to my
check its
MP.
veracity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, right? It's their history, right? So if we're using their history against them, I don't see the problem with it if it's their history.
Oh, no. Sorry, I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm just talking for the benefit of the audience now. In other words, what I'm saying is, as much as, yes, absolutely, you would use Newton and Cavendish and Aristophanes, you can use any of these people. That's part of their narrative. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying don't use it. I'm just saying, you know, for the purposes of whether or not we take it as read, well, I don't. Let's just put it that way.
I love the eloquence of it, though.
But nice, I love it. Great little snippet. But that is, according to them, that's part of Newton's dialogue with some other person in a letter. Then wonderful, you know, I'll take it. Poo all over their argument with it. I love it.
This is the third letter to Bentley, dated the 25th of February 1693, and it's quoted from the works of Richard Bentley in 1838. So, as with everything in history, it's subject to possible adulteration after the event.
Yeah. So it's so the actual reference is from somebody else in the 1830s.
Yeah.
So this is actually a 19th century reference, correct?
Yeah, 19th
Quoted.
century reference.
Yeah.
But it's
Like
it's
all of them.
dated. Yeah, but it's the third letter to Bentley dated 1693, which is about 15 years after he did his Principia, right? Didn't he do the Principia in 1670 something?
You'd be the one to know this narrative better than any of us at the moment, Anthony. You're looking at it. You'd probably know the date better than us. I've probably read.
I thought, John's left, hasn't he?
No, he's there. He's just
No,
pretending.
No, I haven't.
He's here.
But you definitely should be the person to know this, Riley. If you're writing a freaking
I'm
paper on
opening
it.
it up right now.
Don't want my 20 quid back.
Yeah.
Just while you're looking at it,
chill.
just want to mention something to Zach, because I had to dig this out in lieu of the the video I just made, and I know you liked it, and I'm grateful, and it makes me very proud that you are enjoying that video, or you discussed it, Zach. But someone else caught this, what you described about 5 minutes ago. I will check out that link that you posted. But someone else did it, and it was a chap named Al K. And Al K was debunking Ranty by having I can't remember it doesn't even matter what the subject was about, but he basically put a P900 in his car and drove around. And at one point, he's got the camera zoomed in on the road that he's traveling along, and there's a hill, and there's a car that goes over the crest of the hill as he's coming up the hill, forcing the angle to narrow. And what do you know? You get a mirage. You get the number plate and the lights and the everything else along that angle, along the full horizontal line, along the full plane, where that angle has been limited to basically nothing by virtue of the surface of the hill. You get the light in the distance, the street light, miraging, the lights on the car, miraging, the bumper, the tail, the exhaust, miraging. You get this effect, and it's all because of the angle. So, I mean, no doubt what your video will contain, because Al K's also had it in his video when he was trying to do something totally different. And the problem for all these globe heads, you can't escape reality. Whenever they try and film anything, that's why they love their models. As soon as you film something, you can look into it and find where they actually prove the real nature of reality by observation. So that was one example of that. The limited angle caused a BMW 5 Series to mirage upon itself at a matter of, I don't know, less than a quarter of a mile.
Let me just
I have that video I put in chat, and then I have another one I'll drop in chat right here where it shows that happening. It's a real lumpy highway, I call it. A lot of ups and downs, but they're real narrow. It's going through a swamp pretty much, a farmland that used to be swamp. So the road is real wavy, and it mirages like 6 or 7 different times because it's a hill, and then it comes back up, and then another hill, and then it comes back up. It's really cool. And I'll drop that one in chat right now too.
Yeah, and again, it's probably going to be the exact same effect. So you've got this angle that's increasing, decreasing on the road surface, and that causes these very limited mirages at that tight little angle. And you can see it in a nice big effect when someone like Al K's got a great camera, like a P900 zoomed in. You're like, wicked. It's nice and big now. You can see that nice mirage going on.
This is what I wanted to show you guys, and what I wanted Zach's opinion on, and you Nathan, and Anthony as well. I'll share this stuff again. I mentioned the Miles Davis.
Who?
You know.
You mean Miles the Liar Davis?
Oh, there you go, son. Yeah.
By the way, just 2 things. It was 6 years after the Principe of that letter. And just a really quick one. Al K's latest video, Flat Earth Can't Scale. 15,000 views, right? All of his previous other videos are around about 1,000 views. And he's got 15,000 in less than a week. I think he's been going to the school of Simon Dan to learn how to do that. So shout out to Al K for 15,000 views.
15. That's epic.
Yeah.
It's got to be some shit hot content.
Yeah, I went and checked him out because he posted something on Nathan's video that I had posted a comment trying to say something. I shut him up real quick though. But yeah, there was a bunch of his videos that were like 100, 120 views, less than 100 views. Then all of a sudden it starts getting to thousands, and yeah, now it's 15,000. Yeah, I think he exactly what you said there, Anthony.
Yeah, he's been learning from Simon Dan and Conspiracy Flaps as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, sorry, not Josh, Walt, that video you punted out to us minutes before we went live, how about you put a link to that in the chat or wherever, and we'll see if we can get that to 15,000.
Yeah. Can I ask an obvious
He's been on that exhaust again, hasn't he?
Can I ask an obvious question about this this video of Miles the Liar Davis?
Let me give a quick description of it.
Well, what's the purpose of the wood?
Well, it's to create a flat surface because apparently that fucking carpet's not flat enough. No, there is a secondary explanation he gives. Is because he like named it because I've got a Samsung S9. Because I've got an S9, the camera's mounted in the middle. So apparently, because in Nathan's video, it's a kind of response to Nathan's vid, isn't it? This, so he's put that there so that there's an extra 1 and a bit centimeters, so that when he puts his camera below the level of the plywood, it's much lower down rather than digging a hole. So that there is a purpose, but you can.
But there is a problem though, right? There's like zero reflectivity on the wood, whereas the floor that Nathan was using was quite glossy. It might not have been glossy, but it's certainly reflecting, and he's not going to get much reflection on that, is he? I wouldn't have thought.
Let's have a look. Let's see what he does.
I've just got a couple of stills here because I don't want to play his vid, but this is his starting position. And basically his point, Nathan, is from what I can see is, and he sarcastically takes the piss out of attack angle, which a lot of his little chums in the chat jump on as if it's some kind of victory. It's kind of sad, isn't it, the things they enjoy. But his basic point is here, look, you can see the height from here that this is at, and then when you lower the camera down to here, it's a much it's at the same level apparently. And I'll just, because obviously Miles didn't do this, but if I zoom in, first thing I want to look at is you can start to see that what from the back looked like a straightforward image actually has a lot of the issues you were just talking about.
The problem is though,
What?
Go on. It's all right. We'll come back
there is a bit more. I'm only pointing out some, because obviously I watched his video to see the point. I mean, he goes in great detail using the door handle, which is in the center of frame when you stood up, as his real explanator. But you can see here, this miraging is actually happening here. You can see the blurring.
Yeah.
Up earlier, you can see a definitive black line, which is the join between this thing and the two things. Now, what I did, I kind of saw that, and I thought, well, I'll just kind of. I've got Photoshop, and I'm shit with all sorts of stuff, so you'll have to excuse me on this. So what I did was, look, from the other picture, I took a shot and I zoomed in, and then I made it sort of. You can see the width of the door here, so I made it. This is from the other picture. Made it the same width. So, and then I'm going to place it online with the other one. And if you look at this one, I'll zoom right in. I've kind of lined them up, and there was a number of things that became observant. The first one is this is strangely suddenly a lot bigger look, almost like it's mirroring on itself. Otherwise, why is it no longer as thin as it was? And this is the same. I've just put them next to each other. And on Photoshop, you can actually zoom in here and see the mirroring of the lens here. This is 4 pixels wide, and this is only 2 on here. So my conclusion was that, it was again a misrepresentation of the evidence from Miles. What did you call him, Tony?
Miles Liar Davis.
Yeah.
The thing that pisses me off about this, and I never even watched it, I just saw that he'd done something, and I didn't even bother watching it. But what I realised with the wood, right, even though I understand now by your explanation that it was to compensate for the height of the lens in the camera, the problem is that is still failing to repeat and validate the experiment itself or the observation, because you're supposed to do it like for like. This is a bit like Slice Bar Kane putting styrene boards down for the Cavendish experiment, which didn't actually have styrene boards down for the Cavendish experiment. So it's like, why would you do this? Isn't the way to do this, if you don't have the phone that's capable of doing it, either to not repeat it because of that reason, or get a different phone that can repeat it, but go to a floor that's flat, not put wood down, because that's completely it's just utterly garbage for validating or repeating the observation that was originally done. He hasn't done that at all.
It's a very strange, like I said, the point he sets out to prove, I genuinely don't feel that he does. As you can see here, it actually demonstrates all of the points you guys have made over the past year of, starting from the Isle of Man, mirror banding, refraction, and actually obscuring they would call that curvature. Look, you can see the haze here.
They would call it curvature, you're right.
He's actually demonstrated what they call curvature, which is this. Zach, you've got the words. Help me.
Which one?
We shouldn't even be discussing
diffraction limit?
Yeah. Is that what that is? We're seeing this here. To me, that is Airy's diffraction. That, in effect, this is where the points of light are no longer distinguishable as individual points there.
Yeah, that's diffraction. That's the two light sources coming together because the angle has gotten too narrow to distinguish them. Yeah, this is, like I said, it's a fundamental limitation. That means it cannot be avoided of every lens with a circular aperture. There are 6 types of diffraction that take place, but Airy's diffraction takes place right along the center and cuts the top of your eye from the bottom of your eye.
Do we have to
always happen?
Do we have to promote this video anymore? Can we not talk about paint drying or something?
Yeah, I'm done then. Okay, so sharp, bro.
The guy's an utter moron. He's like Sean Hufford. He's not able to do anything. Like citing people. He's not able to do that. He's totally disingenuous. Drives me mental, that guy.
That was my point, mate. The conclusions that I watched it, and with an open mind, but I looked at it, and like I say, I looked at it, and it didn't seem quite right what he was saying from what he was trying to portray, that this angle of attack makes no difference, and obviously that didn't make sense. So I did a little bit of analysis, as you can see there, and as you say, yeah, the reality is the evidence he presented did not match the conclusions he draws. So yeah, well, I don't know if that's lying or just being stupid.
Well, if your camera's not designed to do that particular task very well, why would you then go and completely redo the experiment, right, or the observation in such a way that you completely fluff it up and mess it up, and then claim anything from it? Because if it's based on not repeating the observation, and that's like useless. I mean, get somebody else's phone, go and do it in a supermarket or a long corridor or whatever, and then see, because that will be validating the claim. But by doing it the way he's done it, he's not validated the claim in the first place because he's not repeated it. It's the first rule of like the scientific method is to show your method, and then let somebody go and validate it by repeating it. And he hasn't done that.
We're not doing science.
Shut up. Science. I know. But my point is that he hasn't repeated the thing that you did. You did it on a glossy floor that, I mean, put it this way, everyone's saying, well, the tiles might not be perfectly flat and all that. Yeah, that may well be true, but it's not a curve, is it? The floor's not got a curve to it, right?
I'll get out for that. So I put that on. I was very lucky that Flat Earth Audio remastered it and did motion tracking on it, so it's nice and stable and makes me look really good. But at the end, I point out that the obstruction occurs before the camera gets to the floor. So unless you start claiming that there's several inches, you'd have grannies tripping over them, let alone people playing ping pong tournaments on the bloody thing. It's a very flat floor. But the point being that before I even get to the floor, not to mention the fact that the camera lens is obviously above slightly the case of the camera, I don't even have to get to the floor before it disappears completely. So you've got to be starting to claim that there's, several inches of obstruction on that floor that's creating not a perfect mirror. Yeah, people have walked on it over the past 60 years, but you've still got a mirror image of the stuff that's along that floor. You can't claim that there's tiles out by a couple of inches. Literally, like I say, drop the camera before it gets to the it's gone, because it's already reached the limited angle, because it's a nice long hall.
I saw you. Go on, sorry, Anthony.
I had to laugh at M. Scott Veach because he was arguing that the tiles were that wonky that it effectively was causing what we see. And I said, yeah, but it's not a curved floor, though, is it? And he said, yeah, I'd say that it was a curved floor, and he gave a particular a word for that curved floor. And I said, wait a sec. I said, you're literally going to argue, but because you're now presented with evidence that conflicts with your position, you're going to argue that that floor is bent. And not bowed, like you can imagine that human traffic would cause a bowing in it, like bending down in the middle. Definitely not bending up in the middle. But he's now going to argue, because he's found evidence contrary to his opinion, that the floor is actually bending the opposite way to the way you might reasonably think that it might bend the opposite way, like bowing in the middle. But he's now going to argue that it's convex in the middle, and I'm like, you're going to do that solely because you think
built in the 1850s, and I can verify that old boards and old houses bow in the middle downward.
That's right. But he's now going to argue that the floor's going the opposite way just because it doesn't support his position. And his answer was, yeah. And I'm like, well, you're a moron. He thinks it's normal. And I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, got to argue.
Funny.
That's where, Anthony, when you descend their position into farce, and that's the only position they can take, a farcical position. So in other words, their conclusion, we're not doing science, we're just looking at this, right? They look at it and go, well, obviously, the 90% of it, which will be in the centre of the room, not at the edges where people don't walk, that's going to cause it to bend in such a way that it bends up and causing the obstruction, because it's at least a 2-inch bend upwards, to start blocking the thing in the distance before the camera even reaches the floor. That's bent up.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Conclusion.
Yeah, when I asked him that question, though, his answer was yes. And I'm like, you're a moron.
But that's why we win, because we're not talking science, we're talking logical deduction. And logically, you deduce from what you can see that you've got a limitation to the angle. That's what we've shown in every single image. The fact that these boneheads say, yeah, it's curvature, is as ludicrous when they assert it about the Earth as it is when they assert it about some bloody church hall floor.
Yeah, go and do it in a supermarket with a polished tile floor, because they're pretty much straight and flat, because they don't have any ridges on it, because people will slip, trip, and fall, right? So supermarket floors are pretty much level, and then see if you get the same results that Nathan did. And what do you know? You probably will.
Yeah, I did it in a warehouse where they drive forklifts, and it has to be level.
You were the originator of this, Zach. You are ground zero for this. You know it. I know it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I even mirrored your video where you did it. You basically.
I know. This is why you had me on your show for that was the first time I ever went live was with you.
And yes, that your video doesn't have enough views to warrant how good it is.
Well,
yeah, don't worry about all that stuff.
The video we're talking about is Zach's in a warehouse, and he's got, I think they're paint cans, right? Paint can lids?
Yeah, the lids.
Yeah.
And an A4 sheet of paper. And he backs away from it, and then he lowers and raises the camera. It's as simple as that. It's so easy, anybody could do it. But Zach was the first. It's genius. Wish it was me. It wasn't. It was Zach, of course.
Yeah, I got lucky. Actually, I got that idea from Rob Skiba and his going over the Lake Michigan while he drove away from it rode the boat across Lake Michigan from the Chicago Harbor away from it. And it showed that same thing happening. I was like, hey, I can do this right here on this warehouse floor. And the very first one was with a lighter. I did it with a lighter with some white stripes.
You had people saying the same thing, Zach.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that floor is curved. Yeah. I remember Jem Panda saying, oh, it's got something to do with the lighting. I was like, okay, I'm done even arguing with you anymore.
Do you know what's really funny as well? when you go into like the likes of Jeremy's Discord, or you go into Betty's Discord, and what they want to do is they want to take you down a very narrow path to a particular point, right? And it can be anything, right? But when they get to the thing that they think's a gotcha, whatever that narrow interpretation is, whatever the narrow path that they're taking you down, they've took you down it for whatever reason. But I said to one guy today, I said, listen, why is it that you want to go down a very narrow path on this topic, right? Before you've got to the basics, or you've got to the bottom of the basics, in the terms of like the points that Nathan brings up on his show, for housekeeping, like gravity, curvature, axial rotation, all of these basic things don't have evidence to support them. Yet you want to go down to a really narrow like rabbit hole where you end up asking a really narrow specific question, like, well, how would that work on a flat Earth? And it's like, who cares? Show me where the gravity is. Show me where the curve is. And they don't think about the really basic stuff. They want to go down this really narrow thing where it becomes so remote that you don't even know where to even start with it. Flat Earth or ball Earth, it's become farcical. But they want to argue about the minutiae of these really narrow rabbit holes that they took you down. And it's like, hang on a sec. I said, why are you not arguing or trying to prove the things that are in the housekeeping? Because these things in housekeeping are really important. And these observations that are being done over the horizon with Soundly and whatever, we're finding that we can repeat and recreate all of these effects that you guys told us was curvature. And you guys just go, nah. And it's like, come on. But they'll ignore it, and they'll start arguing about satellites and whether they're painted with paint reflective material or whether it's bare metal and stuff like that. And we're like, this is just ridiculous. Bad.
I think it's where they've had to take the debate, Anthony, to be honest, is there, where you describe, and the other place, which is really noticeable on Nathan now, is these retarded ballers coming in that, like when I was on the other day, you're going through the absolute basics of their model, and it's quite clear they're coming in to just fill up the time with their basic ignorance of their own religion, and it's basically all they've got left to go, because where they can't go is into the understanding, the science. I nearly didn't use the word, and whether that's and the reasoning and the logic and the aesthetic observations that we've got, and they're scared now because I think a lot of the things that have always been used to bat us away as lunatics, the things that, and I was on the street on Nottingham, and it was great fun pulling stuff out. Do you know what I mean? And watching people go, and I think that's the reality, and that's why they're not coming, because whether they're paid shills or not, their arguments have disappeared, and there's nothing left to kind of come back at us with.
Your context for science that time was right, because you were like, they can't come up with this with science, and that is very
shit for that.
No, that's
well done, Adam.
Because they want
Get
to
in there,
don't they? They want to be saying, I can scientifically validate my assertion about this globe Earth religion I have. So they can't come with science. You're absolutely correct, but they want to. That's where we win. So I just don't want flat earthers to be stuck in the same position 2 years from now, when everyone's been saying experiment this and experiment that, and then they all go, okay, let's see your independent variables for all these assertions you all stand behind now. And then suddenly a really great observation suddenly gets turned into pseudoscience, instead of it just being a really, really cracking observation.
Yeah.
Speaking of really good observations, have you seen Jay Toler Media's latest one?
Yeah, infrared guy. Very cool.
1,000-mile observation of the Hudson Bay. He thinks he's looking at the Hudson Bay from 1,000 miles away. I mean, it goes beyond crazy to think that the curve on it is like, it's just gone. It's like so far gone. It's like you might as well be antipode to yourself. It's that bad. And he's seen what he says is, and I'm not sure that he is, because it's really difficult to. But he's got the experience of looking at numerous things now. So it's kind of like bloody hell. Maybe it is, and if he is really looking at it, I mean, it's just not. It's so far beyond game over now. It becomes a joke. I think his work's got to go down as like the work of the year.
You're like a newbie. Look, Anthony, I'm gonna level with you, mate. Earth is flat.
I know, but don't forget there are people that are not necessarily as far down their own journey as what we are. I mean, we're just. It doesn't matter. Anyway, listen. On a better note, on a lighter note, have you seen? And I'm plugging this to death because I think it's brilliant. Have you seen the thief in Blackpool that was stealing the crate of beer?
Yeah.
Ross out of Friends.
Have any of you guys in America seen this?
I have
I
not.
don't know. I don't think I have.
love this.
Well, you know David Schwimmer, Ross out of Friends.
Yeah, I heard about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
He actually tweeted saying that's not me because it looks so much like him.
Well, not only did he tweet, right, what's happened is Ross, David Schwimmer's got a doppelganger in Blackpool, right? And he's been caught on CCTV stealing some beer, a crate of beer, you know, like 10 tins of beer or whatever, still in the cardboard. And he's walking out and he glances up at the camera and he's the doppelganger for David Schwimmer, right? Everyone's pointed the finger at David Schwimmer and he's responded by saying, look, it wasn't me. I'm over in New York. Anyway, it's got momentum to it, and everyone started talking about it. And he's ended up recreating the actual stealing video of him stealing a crate of beer, but in New York at the same time. So his alibi is actually that he wasn't stealing in Blackpool; he was stealing in New. Like the cardboard thing, the beer is actually in. He's got it creaked the same way, so that as he's walking down the aisle and glances up at the camera, honest to God, the doppelganger is so similar to him, it's unbelievable. And his alibi, he's gone out and recreated the video, and his alibi is that he was actually stealing in New York at the time. It wasn't him. But the police they've had a back and forth on Twitter with him and thanking him for his good humour. But it's got to be the video of the year for me because it's just brilliant that he's gone out and done it. It's just great humour. So if you haven't seen it, just go onto Google and type in David Schwimmer, Blackpool Thief or something like that, and you'll find it. It's absolutely excellent.
I've got it up on screen, Tony.
Oh, hang on. Let me get it back on. Let's have a look.
Yeah, I've got it. I should be on the Skype screen.
Is it? Have you got them side by side?
It's been scrolling.